What's going on, everybody? I know you see a new face here. We'll get the intros here in a second. This is the Bear With Us podcast. I am your boy, Frank. Joined with me is Nas. And, simply put, I was, everything going on around the world and in America, I figured it was time for a white man to lose his job for once, So I got the homie Nas in. He's here permanently. I kid. It was supposed to be us three. Jack's got some things going on. So me and Nas are manning the fort for today's episode. Nas, I feel like the last time you were here, I think we just shat on Bulls basketball for like an hour and a half. How's everything been since then?
Yeah, I think you shat on Bulls basketball for like an hour and a half, and I was just like, yeah, let me push back on that. It's not bad, but it's been miserable since, so everything you said was correct, and yeah, we're still the same old Bulls. It's been great.
Yeah, it's not like the Bears are much better. I would even argue at right now, and I even hate that I'm saying this, it feels to me, granted the NBA is a little bit earlier in their season, the NBA feels like a little bit better of a product right now. The NFL is a struggle league right now. I mean, it's every team is weird.
Yeah, I was just chatting with a buddy the other day. He's just like, it's hard to watch, like some of the quarterback play, some of the poor tackling that's still happening. Like usually midseason, you think that stuff like will get cleaned up. Really hasn't. And
no.
Yeah, it's been a tough watch.
I almost wonder, I don't think the league would ever institute anything like this. And I know this wasn't on our docket, but I am curious of your take because it's something that I thought about as this season has gone on. And really as like what you just mentioned has lingered more and more into seasons the last like 5 years. Usually it's like week 1 or 2. Okay, sloppy football. Now we're in it. We're week, 8 or not, whatever it is, 10. And it's still happening. I wonder how the league overall, whether that's ownership or front offices, are going to adjust to that. Because I think what that is one, obviously it's the preseason, it's the OTAs aren't as physical. I get all that. But as soon as an OC has any remnants of capability at his job, he's gone. And that lack of continuity with teams on both sides of the ball, really, because DCs are the same way. If they're a dominant, coordinator, they're going to get a head coaching job that very next year. And it's like, at what point does that stop? And like, or how, it won't stop. But how can the league counteract that? Like, do you have any ideas or thoughts that come to mind?
This feels like an existential question.
Yeah.
The turnover rate in front offices and coaching is just absurd. In my opinion, the best decision-making franchises in any sport have less people making the overall decisions. I think there's too many people in the room. That leads to indecisiveness. It leads to anxiety when there's like a lack of performance, and then you get impulsive moves made. And it always just magically happens. It's like, man, that guy has been the GM there for 4 years. How long did he last there? It's like, and then you turn around, it's like, well, that guy's only got 2 years at the gig. Like, that doesn't make any sense. That's a really short run. How is he supposed to install anything? Like, you always feel like you're saying something along those lines when someone's losing their job. And I think a lot of it is because there's too many voices in the room impacting what's happening on the field.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. And that also leads me to something that isn't on the docket. I want to get a frustration off my chest when it comes to Matt Eberflus. Because what you just said, I was reading this sort of thread, and it's thoughts that we've talked about, so some of it will be a tad bit repetitive, but it's such a weird thing when a coach feels like they're going to lose their job, or when they know they're going to lose their job, that they start to lean on veterans. And we're seeing that already with Eberflus. He's a defensive guy, so he was going to lean on his defense. He's going to want to show at the end of the year, hey, we improved here, and there. Stats were, we were giving up less points, yada, yada, yada. But we're seeing it on the defensive line with Javon Dexter and Zach Pickens. And it's like, dude, playing Justin Jones for 80% of the snaps, and for as much as I like Andrew Billings, I want him to get his reps as well. But it's like, get these young kids in here. You keep your job by showing you can develop young talent. Like that's how you stay. And you leaning on vets to get you to squeeze out that extra fifth win isn't going to get you anywhere. Like, what is the disconnect with these coaches that do that? It's so strange to me.
Specifically with the Bears, I'm confused because it feels like Flus pushed for that Sweat trade. Like, get me veterans so I can run my stuff. I need to be able to run my system. I need a player in here. And then, so it actually made me think more about just the Bears in general. It made me think Poles must be feeling some heat too. For him to make that trade, he is feeling like his job is also at risk. And I just, what they really need to do is assign what each person's role is for. Is Poles' job to help add talent throughout the season, but also ultimately plan for the future development of the team? And then is Flus, what's his job? Are we in a win now situation, or are we developing players? It feels like there's nothing concrete instilled in either of their roles. And then it leaves us in flux is kind of how I'm seeing it. It doesn't seem like there's a clear vision of where this team's going.
Yeah, and you know where I think it stems from, and not to go down this road because we have a decent amount to talk about today, but I think that's what you get when you have an organization that does everything out of order. They started the coaching interviews first. They had the final 3 or 5, whoever reports you believe. Then they bring in the GMs who were to interview those 3 or 5. They pick Poles, who then picks the coach. And after a year of Poles being here, they say, oh, it's actually not George McCaskey that's your boss. Here's the new president. And it's like, that was like the most out of order it can be. You started from the bottom up.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of couldn't believe it. And then we have people like Bill Polian and Tony Dungy in on the hiring committee, who we could hire the biggest piece of shit. And it really is no skin off their back. They're just being paid to be consulted, and then they're out the door. Oh, and what are the odds? They recommended someone who runs a Tampa 2 from Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I know. I know. Okay, let's move on, because one thing you did bring up was the Montez Sweat trade. And to be honest with you, I don't know if I agree or disagree with your take, but that is a good take. I hadn't thought about that prior, that may be Poles also feeling a little bit of heat. Generally speaking, what were your thoughts when the trade went down? Let's add in the extension as well, because I think part of people's frustration was like, how the fuck didn't you have the extent? We've come to find out Washington wasn't playing ball. It is what it is. Extensions here, 2nd round pick. What is it? 72 million guaranteed over 4. What were the thoughts?
I had a lot of thoughts, to be honest. I gotta say, the 2nd round pick for the 2nd year in a row, that kind of cut deep. It felt very unnecessary because, in my opinion, despite the guaranteed money, you look at it, it's over a 4-year deal. This guy's in the prime of his career. He's probably going to play out this contract. So I think typically when you look at NFL contracts, you're only looking at the guaranteed money because you know those players usually don't last. Sweat is going to probably last through this 4-year deal. So when you look at that total number, it's really 98. So we're looking at 25 or 24 and some change a year for a guy who has 31 sacks in 5 years, or 4.5 seasons, I guess. And we also traded a very valuable asset for that. I think the 98 mil, 72 guaranteed is an overpay. I think it's something you can achieve in the off season. Yeah, you're bidding against others, but I don't think he's getting that number. I think we end up getting him. If that's what the negotiation comes down to, I think we end up signing him. And you always overpay in free agency. I don't really care about paying in free agency. We have the money. Let's use it on a player that we think is going to impact the team. The 2nd round pick, I mean, Frank, how many times have you seen picks that are second rounders through 6th rounders that end up being starters by the end of their rookie year? Like, it's countless numbers of dudes. So you're saying we're going to trade a potential starter on a rookie deal that's limited, and how, like, it's not a 1st round pick where their scale's a little bit more expensive. We're paying for someone on the cheap, and we just throw that away for the 2nd year in a row. And it's going to be a top end 2nd rounder. So this could be someone who has a 1st round grade in a lot of franchises' boardrooms. So yeah, I'm not happy about it. It's nothing against Sweat. I think he's a good player. I really do. And I think he'll have some splash plays. I do think he lacks a little bit of discipline. And I thought all those guys on the Commanders did. I was even surprised that Chase Young went for a 3rd rounder. But then I found out that 3rd rounder that the Niners gave up was a compensatory. So it really wasn't even theirs. So they gave up a 3rd round pick that they weren't even thinking it didn't really feel like theirs anyways. So they just got him for free, and they added depth. They traded for Randy Gregory. But this feels like that's a contender move. We're trying to build towards something. And again, no problem with paying somebody. He's a good player. And, but it just feels like that 2nd rounder after the Claypool deal, it's feeling like Poles is trying to erase all the goodwill that he got out of that Carolina deal.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mind it. I don't hate your take because I at the end of the day, it's going to be a hindsight thing, right? Like if he balls out, if he's getting paid that 24 guaranteed, I mean, because guys like Bosa, guys like Garrett, these guys are in the 30s. Like that's elite money. He's not making elite money just for the sake of argument. I don't think this is going to happen. What I'm saying is
he's never had 10 plus sacks in a season.
No, for sure. But what I'm saying is, let's just say the system was holding him back. Whatever was happening in Washington, coaching was poor. I mean, because him and Chase were both, you let the reporters tell it there. They were saying like they both went rogue a lot to try to do things. That to me is more of a coaching thing versus player thing. So let's just say 4 years of 12 plus sacks. You're talking about a discount. You're talking about a possible hold-in. So again, I'm not saying that is going to happen, but that is going to be predicated on looking back at how well, Ryan Poles scouted him, thought about him coming out, thought he could fit in this or another defense. The one thing I do like, it's something that Jack brought up last week, is he's played both in a 3-4 and a 4-3. So with him being the biggest investment as it stands on the defense, we're not tied to this 4-3 if we decide to move on from Eberflus next year, which is a big plus. But I don't hate it at all. I thought he played well as well. He had 3 or 4 quarterback pressures in pretty limited time. He had a couple where he was just chasing down. I mean, the hustle was nice to see. It's unfortunate that our linebackers couldn't make the play, but it was good to see him playing hard. Naz, I told you pre-prep going in that I had a take on this because I paid closely attention to him while I was watching the game, but then after the fact, I watched some all 22. I watched there's a couple Twitter accounts that put like, here are all the Montez Sweat plays and watch them. And I didn't see, not only from him, because I watched it 3 or 4 times to watch the interior guys, but then also Ngakoue when he was on the outside and Walker when he was on the outside. There was zero, and I need to go back and do this for almost every game now to make this theory like complete, but there was 0 stunts. There were 0 even like inside swim moves to go around. And I sort of hearkened back to when they first hired Eberflus. The 2 things he said were the most important thing is the 3 technique, which you want that in any defense. You get interior pressure, you're fucking money, right? So I understand why it's important, but for him, that's the premier. That is like, I need you to be Tommy Harris to never get hurt in your prime. That's what I need you to be. Warren Sapp type of thing. And with that in mind, I watched the way that defensive ends were playing, and like it looks like they're being coached to only set the edge. It doesn't look like they're being coached to actually get the quarterback. And because even like you're not sending any A-gap blitzes to set that edge and make the guards make a choice. It's just this weird bland, like let's let the defensive ends be as wide as possible to make the quarterback either step up into this pressure that we're supposed to get from, Justin Jones or Andrew Billings, or we're just setting the edge so a mobile quarterback can't run on us, which makes me like, it sort of brings to your point of, they need to sort of decide why decisions are being made and what's happening, because if that truly is the case, what I'm saying, Poles trading for a defensive end, there's a disconnect between him and Eberflus, because Montez Sweat is a good player. Again, you can debate if he's elite or not. That's besides the point. But if you're going to use him in that manner, he's not going to make any sort of impact. And also, I should have prefaced and said last week, what I was saying was a big reflection of the coaches has been Yannick Ngakoue is a 9 plus sack a year. He's a renegade. You throw him anywhere, he does it. He doesn't just all of a sudden not know how to get to the quarterback. That's fucking absurd to me. And so what I said last week was, and it's why I paid special attention going into this past game, was this is going to be the biggest indictment to me, the biggest red flag moving forward if Montez Sweat just all of a sudden looks ordinary. Because again, he may not be elite, but he's never just been ordinary. And watching those snaps, They don't do, I mean, they're not even having them do like swim moves to the inside, spin moves to get inside. It's all just go out and stay out. And if you can get around the left or right tackle, then you can get there. But like, it's so bland and ugly. Like, I was very upset watching that tape back.
This is actually making me feel intrigued to go back and watch. I'm wondering if how much of it is that bend but don't break mentality, try to kill us by 1,000 cuts, Tampa 2 style, the way Flus has been brought up to coach. I'm wondering if that's him impacting it a little bit. Thinking, okay, if we play this discipline and never give up a huge play, we set the edge, nothing big ever happens. Also, I think what happens with that, in a complimentary way, I could maybe see a coach talking himself into, well, if we play this way, we actually shorten the game, because then the ball's moving, the clock's running. If we shorten the game, that actually enhances our opportunity to actually win it, I guess.
Yeah.
That's like, I mean, the way you bringing that point up, I'm intrigued to look back and to see maybe there is something to that, and maybe maybe that's the reasoning for it. Flus, for him to be, man, just this guy. I would say there's a definite disconnect between the two right now. I'm not really sure what Flus thinks he can accomplish by having them rush that way. The team needs to start making more splash plays. Period. Yep. We need to get the ball in more opportunistic situations with better field position. If that's the way that they're being coached to rush, I don't think that's a recipe for success.
No, I totally agree. And it's one of those things where, you know, going into this season, what me and Jack had said about this defense was there's still some pieces away on the defensive line. I love what they did at linebacker. I think they're solidified there. First of all, they may have fucked up paying. I liked the Edmonds signing, but Jack Sanborn is a fucking baller. I don't care what defense they switch to. He needs to be starting. He can play. That was a bit of a tangent. But we thought this, if Flus was good at his job, we thought this could have been the recipe for like a 2014, 2015 Vic Fangio type of thing, where they were still like Aaron Lynch was your, Pernell McPhee were there. There's sort of the lingerings of that. But the corners and the safeties were so good in coverage that they were getting coverage sacks. So we thought if he knows what he's doing, that's what we can get. But again, going back to, and I could be wrong, so I want to preface that and say I could be dead wrong on that. I don't know how they're being coached, but it looks that way. If they're playing that way, it doesn't matter how good your coverage is. You're giving a quarterback 7 seconds to throw. Like, it's fucking no wonder why Dinkin and Duncan and all these screens and shit work and these practices are great. And Justin looks good because he's playing this defense. Like, yeah. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I'm starting to just piece together certain things because we looked back and we saw even like Sean Desai when he was here a couple of years. It was the year after they had let go Chuck Pagano. It was still a very similar thing to what Vic Fangio ran, and even to what Pagano was doing. It was just there was more aggression to it. There was more stunts. There was more confusion. It seemed like there was more things to do post snap. And it's like Eberflus, I don't think there's anything. Like if they line up single high safety, they're staying single high safety. Like I'm not having to see. It looks like quarterbacks are able to diagnose pre-snap what they have to do, and that's it. They're done. They're good to go.
Feels like the opposite of a hits principle team, don't you think? I mean, instead of being overly aggressive and trying new ways to attack another team and confuse them, we're trying to like lull them to sleep. I don't get it.
Yeah, same. It's been, I mean, it's especially confusing because corner blitzes have worked when they've been drawn up this season. TJ Edwards has gotten some quarterback pressures on blitzes. Edmonds has gotten some picks off of tip balls when you're getting pressure. Like, just be more aggressive. And again, like, you look at what's happening even with Minnesota's defense. They've still given up some big gains and big play, but that you have to have some risk. You have to have some skin in the game to make this thing happen. What you talked about is what Jack's biggest fear is when we first hired Flus. Is like, is this going to be the shell cover 2 that's you die by 1,000 paper cuts versus just being stabbed in the heart? That hurts more. Get me out of there quick
Yeah.
if that's going to be the case, if you're just outmanned. But you're never going to beat good teams or even like above average or average teams playing that way. You'll beat the bad one. That's why we beat the Raiders, because you can just out execute them. It's not just about that when it comes to the really good. And we saw that against New Orleans, and we saw that against the Chargers now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you have a really young team, playing that way might be like a floor raiser. It's like, okay, we can't get blown out if we play this style of football. But then again, like there's a disconnect. So what's the goal of this team? What are we actually trying to accomplish? I'm always going to be in favor of producing pressure in any way you can. And if the front four aren't doing it, get creative and do what you need to do. And let's like, isn't Tampa too, like, don't we want to take away the ball, like on some level, and force some quarterbacks into mistakes? Like, how many elite blitz beaters have we played against this season besides Mahomes? I mean, it can't be that long a list. It really can't be. So I don't really see why being conservative from a defensive play calling would suit this team in any way. And like, let's get them to play fast.
Yep.
Like, I don't really want especially a young D line to be sitting there and forced to think too much. Like, let's get them moving, reacting, put some pressure, and see what happens. I mean, at least try something new. We got a half a season left. Let's see if we could play that. Like, what's the harm in seeing if we could play that way? And if it ends up looking good, it could help our buddy Flus.
That's where I'm at a disconnect. And I think it's a good segue into the Tyson Bagent conversation, just about sort of how he played and what we want for the rest of the year. But I feel the same exact way about Bagent that I do about any sort of adjustments on the defense. I have this feeling, Nas, because our schedule moving forward is not all that hard. Like, you can squint and they can win 3 or 4 more games. And it's not because the Bears are good. It's because the opposition is bad. Let's say Flus makes some of these adjustments. He plays more aggressive and he does his thing because his back's against the wall. He's trying to save his job. You know, that means we're probably going to bring him back for another year. And this was the conversation that I had, and I don't want that. Like, that's part of my problem. This was the conversation that I had a few weeks ago with Jack after Bagent got his first NFL win, and with a few friends, and like their take on it with me was like, just say you hate Bagent. It's like, no, I think he's a really good backup. I do. Like, you find an undrafted guy on that cheap to plug in for a game or two, that's phenomenal. That's a diamond in the rough. As a starter, I was just like, how Bears is it that this guy comes in, backs into like 4 wins, and then everyone's like, oh, even if we had the number one, this would be the cherry on top to be like, oh, Caleb, what? No, let's trade it. We have Tyson Bagent. Like, he's gonna come, like he's our saving grace. And then he just goes along and you know, is a bum for the rest of his career. So like that was my take with Bagent, is like, I would like for him to play well enough to get the fans going and you know, maybe get a win. But prove that he's a good backup, but I can't have him be good enough to get us out of the number one sweepstakes. I want to be there, even if that ultimately means like Justin comes back and he proves that he's a guy, then we get another fucking DJ Moore type of haul. Like, either way, I want to be there. You get what I'm saying? Like, I'm not at the point where I'm necessarily ready to move on from Fields. Like, that conversation we can delay, but just if you're there, now the world's in your hands again. Whether that means Caleb and trade Justin for a 2 and a 3, whatever it would be, or getting another fucking haul. Like, we can't have that. We can't have that happen. All that said, Nas, not only isolating it to this week, what have been your thoughts on Bagent just generally?
I think he's got pretty good instincts. You can tell he has played a lot of quarterback in his life. He's really calm in the pocket. Now, based on how our offensive line has been playing, maybe not. Maybe have a little more sense of urgency. He's gotten fooled on some coverage stuff. I honestly, of the 4 or 5 picks that he's thrown, I would say 1 was really because of arm talent, and then the other ones he's getting fooled. And the arm talent's a concern. I think it's like, okay, this is what your prototypical backup would look like. The more he's in the league, the better he's going to be at that particular role. But the only way this guy were to ever like be a legit starter is if he's got Kyle Shanahan. That's like literally the only success story I see if that guy's going to be a starter in the league. And there's nothing wrong with that. I like him a lot. I love the vibe he get. The guys like to play with him. Like, love everything about him, but he ain't it. He's a backup, and that's cool and good for them. Getsy saw him at the Senior Bowl, and here we are. That's great. Great pickup.
I totally agree, and I think we have almost the same take, but my framing of it is a little bit different. I remember we were texting about it, and I think we ultimately agreed. But it's like you're right. I'm not saying you're wrong that he's been fooled and he's been late on throws, but like that to me is where the arm talent, like what is it? It's like it's highlighted. It's like really exposed because he has to be so perfect on some of these timing routes. Where and the other thing too that someone brought, I wish I would have screenshotted it and to give them their Twitter credit, but someone did say this. It's not my take. That it seems like because both quarterbacks are vastly different, right? But it seems like they're being coached, and that's not to cape for Justin. I know he has anticipation throw problems, just generally speaking, but everything else, when you see the way that Bagent processes, he is also a see it and throw it guy. But that doesn't fit in with the way I see him go through his reads and such. He has made some anticipatory throw. I mean, but so has Justin over the last 4 years. I don't think that makes them good anticipatory throwers. But it's like, I wonder, I don't know I don't know if you'd ever actually be able to get to it, but like what the percentage of that is them, or is that the way that Getsy is coaching things? The light bulb went off for me, Nas, to finish the original point, because that one throw when you were like, I don't know if that was arm talent. It was the first or second pick. He felt late, and I was like, that's sort of my point too, though. It was like, you're right, he was late, but like Jay Cutler gets that in there and at least gives his receiver a shot because he has a strong arm. You know what I mean? It still could be picked because you're late, of course. Like the DBs can make a good play on the ball, but like the receiver had no shot at all. That's like
right. Yeah,
it was such a slow ball.
Yeah. No, yeah. You watch that ball come out of his hands. It's not exploding. So It's like he has got, it's like old Peyton Manning. You got to throw it before that guy gets out of the break. And when he turns around, it's sitting there waiting for him sort of throw. That's the way Bagent's got to be, without a doubt. And I honestly, we're not going to talk about Jay Cutler too much, but to Jay's credit, like he was a good I can't say the word. He could anticipate throws pretty well, but he just trusted his arm a little too much. Like, okay, I know this guy's going to be there, and I don't care that there's going to be three around him. I'm fitting this ball in, and he would throw it on time. But sometimes there would just be a dude in his way. Like, no big deal.
Sometimes D'Angelo Hall was there 4 times. That's all. That's it.
Oh man.
Oh Jesus. So let's sort of shift the conversation then, because I think I'm also glad that now that there's been a few starts for Bagent, that most people have come to their senses and they're like, look, this guy just isn't a starter. He's fun. It's great when he's in there. It's going to be a fun watch just because of the his lack of physical talent and what he has to do to try to succeed at this level. That obviously means that me and you are ready for Fields to come back when the thumb is ready, when he's good to go. And I don't even think we bother in like talking about the differences. They're vastly different quarterbacks. We know that. That being said, I do think first of all, the halftime show this past Sunday was fucking absurd. They were talking about Tyson Bagent like he was fucking Joe Montana.
Okay. Wait. Time out. That first half, he was solid. He was solid. That was like, for being a rookie from a D2 school to play that complete of a half, it was really impressive. And then the D2 in him came out in that second half. And to Dennis Allen's credit, like they made the adjustments they needed to make. But that first half was probably the most solid half of football we've seen a quarterback play this year against that level defense, in my opinion. That's the best defense we played.
I don't disagree with the take. And I'll even further that and say the 3 games, given the context, he has been awesome. But for them to talk like they were just witnessing what CJ Stroud did last week was a little mind-boggling to me. And it really does make me lean into the theory that these coaches are talking to production teams when they're in these meetings and like kind of throwing Justin under the bus, which makes me, before we talk about like what we potentially could see from Justin the rest of the year, assuming he starts this Thursday, a quote came out today actually from Luke Getsy, and they asked him like, what do you think Justin may come back? And he's like, well, the game plan won't change very much. It doesn't matter who's in there. Like, I'm going to do my thing. I'm paraphrasing, but that's literally what he said. And you take into context, Nas, that these guys couldn't be any more different Like there's nothing that they do. Like you talk about the lack of explosion in his arm. Justin has all the explosion. You talk about the anticipatory, or you talk about the sort of quick reads. Bayesian has all that. Justin doesn't. Justin holds. I mean, everything about them is opposite. They probably have like one likes vanilla, one likes chocolate. It's like a type 1, type 2 thing. Like they're just opposite everything. Is that not? And again, if for everyone listening as well, take what you feel about Justin and what you want the Bears to do. Is that not an indictment? Just a huge red flag on Getsy as an offensive play caller. That's ridiculous to me that you would say that.
This is gonna be a segment in the show where I'm trying to brace myself and like just calm myself down because Getsy might be the biggest fraud in the fucking league. It's a joke, and the fact that he would say that, the arrogance that you could say that with, is just absurd to me. It's like, dude, you had Aaron fucking Rodgers, like you like. And this is the dice you roll. Like, this is what you're dealing with when you're bringing up a young coordinator that you think might have something, or a quarterbacks coach that you're promoting to coordinator, where like sometimes they have not dealt with enough situations where they've had to make an adjustment in their coaching style. And this is, I mean, the audacity for him to say that is just absurd to me. Which this I didn't know how we were going to get to this, but I did want to bring this up from the Saints game. We were playing pretty solid in the first half. We're driving to end the half. We are slowly moving the ball up, and then it gets under a minute. It's 2nd and 9. We're in Saints territory, and we have all 3 timeouts. And Flus calls a timeout. I'm like, oh my God, they are coaching this young dude. Like, this is amazing. Okay, so there's 49 seconds left in the half. We're in their territory. We're probably around like the 40-yard line. Frank, in your opinion, you have a first-year quarterback. You're calling a timeout with less than a minute left to get some points on the board before halftime. What do you think? What discussions do you think are happening in the timeout? Like, just off the top of your head.
In this particular situation, it's you're talking offensive. We're talking just out routes. We're talking getting out of bounds, right? You're talking about getting chunk plays.
Thinking about the clock, maybe chunk plays. Don't take a sack.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Right. Don't waste time is the ultimate theme.
Don't waste time. It's 2nd and 9. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I love this, because he's probably like, okay, if you throw it here, we're going to clock it. If you throw it here, we're going to call timeout. This is going to be the hot route. If you get pressure, blah, blah, blah. Like, this is what we're calling. I was like, this is amazing. Getsy's coaching this guy. And we run a fucking play action and he gets sacked. And I was like, this is a microcosm of our season, because there is no one in the building that's thinking we are going to run on this play. Everybody is thinking, okay, they took a timeout because they are going to pass, and they have a specific group of plays where they're going to throw at us here. They are not running this ball. There's no way they are running this ball. And so we ran a play action, and Bayesian is he does the fake, and then he's probably standing with the ball in proper position for maybe a second, and then gets fucking clock. And I'm just like, what is happening? And that moment right there, that's a microcosm of who Getsy is. Like, he sees plays. He doesn't really understand scheme, or he definitely does more than I do. I didn't grow up playing football. My experience is very limited. I coach elementary flag football. I don't have a heavy resume. But even I know for a fact they are not running the ball in that situation. And if I know that, guess what? Cam Jordan knows it too.
Yeah. And that's like part of my problem. And that's what I always preface and say, like, I'm not trying to act like I'm some expert. Like you even like you listen to, there was an awesome question by one of the German reporters to Mike McDaniel before they played over there. And he's like, breaking down scheme. I don't have that ability. But at the end of the day, if I look at a formation and I know what's coming, just little old fucking Frank from the south side of Chicago, so does every defensive coordinator in the goddamn world. Like, that's inexcusable. It's so absurd.
Yeah, I mean, like, in that moment, the Saints are thinking, okay, if they run it here, we are going to live with it.
Yeah.
That's probably what they're saying in their timeout. We are going to try to make a play here. It was that, like, Oh my God.
I know.
Just absurdity.
It's and well, I mean, there was another play in which me and you texted in one of the group chats that was also a microcosm. Bayesian throws a fucking dime ball. I think it was to Darnell Mooney, like a 20-something yard chunk play. We're like, all right, we're going here. What does Luke Getsy draw up the very next play? A fucking double end around. I think it was the Tyler Scott.
Tyler Scott, yeah,
that just gets blown up in the backfield. And it's, I swear to God, he has a self-sabotage clause in his contract. Like, anytime we get 40 yards, we've got to go back 10 just to prove your worth.
Well, it's just straight up proof that Getsy doesn't believe he doesn't believe in Bayesian. He thinks he's protecting the quarterbacks when he's drawing up those gadget gimmicky fucking plays. He thinks he's protecting them. And that couldn't be further from the truth. You're actually just showing that you don't have faith in them. And it's like, that's supposed to be the leader of the team that like you're trying to reinforce throughout the game. And if you're not showing that support, that you just fucking believe in them and you keep continuing, like I get it every once in a while. It's like, all right, this is probably something they haven't seen in film. Like we're going to catch them off guard at the right time. It's happening every drive. There's some dumb gimmicky play that like literally looks like you just like took off the whiteboard under special plays and propped it into whatever scheme you were trying to draw up for that week. Like it absolutely, what a joke.
I know.
Absolute joke.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, you know, it's if you want to protect the quarterback, if you want to make sure that he doesn't lose you the game, and just manages the game, it's like, how have you gone so far away from just leaning on the run? You have what was a three-headed monster, which is now just two, but you have two really good running backs that are healthy right now. And you look at the way that when Tev does what he does, Whitehair is a little iffy, but his run blocking is still very good. Lucas Patrick is blah, but they're a really good run blocking unit. And you look at the way that when Baltimore can't get the pass going, they rely on the run. Gus the Bus is out here. He's been in the league for 17 years, Nas. He's still fucking scoring 3 touchdowns a game when they need him to. Like, you can really lean on fundamental smash mouth football. It's not going to win you a championship. I'm not advocating for the get back to 85, get Ditka. I'm just saying in these moments, in these games where you're not necessarily comfortable with what you're seeing from your quarterback, lean heavy on the run. And then it opens up some misdirection stuff, that opens up some play action fake, that opens up some, the RPO. Like, it opens up so much more, to your point of like, now you not only do you not have to protect him, but now you don't have to worry about him losing the game because it starts to open up way more. It's less decision making because even some of these RPOs, I know people are dead set, and it's because of the lack of development from Justin. I get it, of like, well, get to read 3 and 4. Sometimes you don't have to. Sometimes you can be a 1 read and go. That's okay every now and then. Or a 1-2 reads, if it's not there, throw it away, or just scramble or run. That can work every now and then. And he just has, I don't know, he's like, I don't know if he's in his own head as a play caller or if he's just blatantly inept at things, but something just isn't working there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a misevaluation of the talent is what it comes down to. And not totally understanding what you have and kind of refusing to give, well, like, I'm going to guess, Getsy probably worked really hard to get to the spot. I'm not going to doubt the guy's work ethic. And so when something has proven correct in your career, it's probably, I would imagine it's hard to adjust or to believe like that's what the issue is. And you need to know what the strength of your team is. And if it's getting proven, I mean, the misevaluation of talent, I mean, Foreman's not even active early in the season. Like, they don't know what they have, and they continuously are giving the ball over. I think this is a large enough sample size between the Velus Jones, Tyler Scotts of the world. Like, the refusal to understand, like, that's not us. That's not what we don't need to do that. And that's just kind of like where he's at right now. I think he's probably feeling stuck on some level, I would think, because he's feeling like he needs to go to those plays. And he's also, he's not looking at what the roster is showing with like a clear picture in his brain.
I agree. It's also frustrating though, because then you have like a game or two where you're like, maybe he put it together. And that started last year against the Patriots. They didn't rely on Justin to run at all. You almost forgot he could run. And all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, like this whole RPO, quarterback draw, even quarterback sweeps. Granted, that's not longevity, but it just showed his
fast. We looked quick.
That's what I'm saying. Like it showed his, and even some of the misdirection he was doing last year, even in some of those losses, like, I mean, the offense, I know we're way past that. You can't really use it for any sort of evaluation purposes at this point, but it felt like some building block stuff that they were doing, because you think about the Miami game, you think about, I'm blanking on the other game where they scored 30, they outscored an offense, and it was special teams that got them beat. But you were seeing stuff that's like, man, maybe Getsy does know what he's doing. Like, I'll live with that. A rebuilding team giving me 25, 27 a game, and the defense is losing, and that's the best way to rebuild. Absolutely. I mean, it's the same thing in baseball. When we were rebuilding, you have bums in the bullpen, you let everyone else develop, and they blow the game. We're going to get a high draft pick.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we got clouded with Fields. I mean, Fields was like, I mean, he was covering up a lot of ineptitude.
Yep.
With rushing for literally 100 yards a game.
I know.
You know, and sometimes you can kind of like, and I think that happens, and Pat Riley speaks about this a lot, like the disease of me. Like, and sometimes you can get clouded and you look at the numbers, you're like, oh shit, did we just put up 300 yards of offense? Like, and you kind of lose sight, you're kind of losing sight of what's actually happening in front of you, and the why of what's happening in front of you. And because you're looking for actions of affirmation, things to confirm that you are doing the right thing by your young quarterback, by your young team. And yeah, I mean, going any last season, like, I mean, I bet the over on Bears wins this year. I was feeling pretty good. I was like, okay, we're going to take this momentum. We're going to build on it. DJ Moore, here we go. Draft another lineman. Like, we're on to something. And no, we're not.
I know it's somehow. I haven't looked at the stats from this season to last season, like, you know, sort of point to point, but I guess it's because of the expectations. And again, like that's what like drives me crazy, is even like what you said, like the common sense timeout, what we're doing, like just to even be excited about that. How low is our bar that we're like 6 wins would have been good. 6 wins and more improvement from Justin, continuity with offensive play calling, and the defense being lower middle of the pack. Give me 18 overall, 20 overall. That's improvement. I would have taken that. That was our bar. And somehow we're fucking nowhere near it again. We're bottom of the barrel. That's absurd. With all the talent that they've, I don't want to say act like they have a championship talent, but like the roster improved. On paper, this is an improved roster from last year.
100%. And it's going to, the thing is, man, and like, this is where I feel like we have been stuck here so many times. It's like, okay, here come like the roster is about to get better again after this upcoming draft and free agency. And we are gonna without a doubt see improvement next year, whether Flus is with us or not. We are going to see it, and we have to be able to evaluate the why and understand: is the coaching that's occurring on the field, is that complementing the talent that's on the field, or is the talent on the field performing despite what the coaching is doing? And I mean, it's a hard balance, because I don't have a trained enough eye to really know, you know, and I will admit it. I have been fooled many times thinking like, it's the player. Oh no, it's the coach. And it's like, man, I don't know. Like in this particular instance, I am praying that we do an overhaul before we acquire all this talent, and don't fool ourselves into Flus living out this contract, because the fact of the matter is, he has proven he cannot lead this group.
Yep.
He can't.
And I think the thing for me, again, untrained eye, of course, this is a fan's perspective. For those who tune in, you should know this by now. But the biggest smoking gun when it comes to that for me in this particular case is no one's improved in a year and a half on either side of the ball. They were either good already. DJ Moore has always been DJ Moore. Darnell Wright was the number 1 or number 2 tackle going into that draft.
Jalen's been solid since he's been here.
Yeah, and that wasn't their draft pick. He was already here. Yeah. Like, guys who were balling, we're already balling. Like, I give Poles some credit for identifying like Andrew Billings. I like the re-signing of that. Like, he's made some good signings, but in terms of the coaching staff themselves, they haven't made anyone better. We knew that Velus Jones was a raw 40-year-old prospect that didn't have a route tree. and he hasn't gotten any better. Like the guys who, and again, this shouldn't be as big of an indictment, but even thinking of Dominique Robinson, who was another raw guy, super talented, nothing from him as well after they cut a couple of defensive ends to end the preseason. So it's like guys who, have raw talent that weren't necessarily refined aren't improving a bit. As a matter of fact, they've probably regressed, or they're not even getting reps at this point. Like they've been so bad. Right. So it's like, that to me is a system and a coaching thing versus, and it's not to take the blame off of the players, but at the end of the day, they're not being set up for success. They're not being developed, and that's a system coaching staff problem.
100%. This is kind of my issue with your boy Salah too. Like the guy has always had the equipment.
Yep.
Like he's always had elite level talent on the defensive end. Can't tell you how many times they cut to him in last night's game. But boy, every time they did, that motherfucker wasn't saying anything. I don't know what he does. Yeah. I really don't.
No, can I be completely honest with you, Naz? I don't like or dislike Salah. I thought he was really good in San Fran. He had a couple good years there. I watched them build. Obviously, he's helping identify some of that talent with Sauce and the interior guys that they have, and they built a good defense there. But it was just so shocking to me when I was like, Naz, got a brown dude here. Let's do it. Let's get some broad pride. And you're just like, I thought he was overrated in San Fran. So I've just been on that train ever since, just to fuck with you.
You know who I liked? My Muslim brother, Sean Desai.
Dude, I knew we needed the whole overhaul, but if there was to keep anyone from that staff, he fucking earned it. He did so well as the Bears defensive coordinator.
I agree. I mean, yeah, and clearly we weren't the only ones who noticed.
I know.
Now he's on a Super Bowl caliber team, killing it. And man, just I never thought I would want us to aspire to be the Eagles organization. I really didn't think much of them growing up, but man, they're like the model NFC team right now.
Yeah, I mean, hell, they what was it, 4 straight NFC championships when we were younger? They had quite a bit of success. Andy Reid started there as the head coach. Yeah. I mean, they had a lot of success. They were fun to watch. They had some TO years. James Thrash.
Oh my God, yeah.
Brian Westbrook.
Andy Reid. Brian Westbrook, fantasy legend.
I know.
Love that guy.
Very good. Naz, we have to end the episode with orange jerseys, which we'll get to. But I do want to know because again, we both agree when Fields is healthy, he should play. Is there anything, I guess, in the same vein that we're talking about, like it really doesn't matter what we see from the coaching staff. I think we're both set on them being gone. Are you there yet with Fields, or do you feel like he can do something for the remaining? Why am I confused as to what week it is? Are we in week 10? Week 10 for the remaining 8 weeks, 7 games, 8 weeks.
Is there anything he can do
that you would be
okay? Like let's keep going.
Let him roll into next year to continue the evaluation.
I mean, sure, there's something he could do. He would have to. I mean, he'd have to play lights out, but I can't see that happening. I really I think and I can't see that happening with us. I feel like there are other teams around that probably have the infrastructure to take him in and develop him. And I think with the right coaching and the appropriate system, Fields could turn out to be probably pretty good. I just don't think the risk of the investment is worth it anymore for the Chicago Bears to keep him around. We are going to be trending really young. Some more, actually. We're already pretty young. We're going to continue that trend with this next year's draft. And I just think when you're already building that young and the contracts are slightly off, and you've got to extend the guy who hasn't really earned it, and then because what's going to happen? He's going to finish out this year, and then we're going to give him another run his 4th year. And then everyone's going to be talking about the 5th-year option or an extension the whole time. There's going to be all that noise. And it's like, I don't really want to be dealing with that right now. I would rather trade him and then invest in our guys that we've been talking about a lot lately via text, and Caleb and Drake. And if Shedeur came out, I would be all in. I like that guy. I like the calmness in the pocket. I like the ability to know where the football needs to go. Michael Penix, like you mentioned, the throwing motion's a little weird, and Drake's throwing motion.
Drake's throwing motion's fucking weird.
I've been looking. I mean, I've definitely been peeking at him a little bit more. I don't watch college football that much, but it's a little weird for a guy who's 6'4". He's kind of got that Herbert-y sidearm thing happen. Like, I just feel like that's a lot of batted balls happening because it's not a quick release. If it was a quick release, I wouldn't really care because like Caleb's shorter, but he gets the football effortlessly.
It's a flick of a wrist.
It's literally nothing for the guy. And the way Drake, and like people have succeeded with weird throwing motions. I'm just trying to like, in my brain, well, what's less risk as we approach the draft? And it's it's not close.
Yeah.
Caleb, and also I think something underrated about Caleb is he's not throwing to any superstars on the USC offense. And this dude is throwing up points like crazy. But yeah, like effortless thrower of the football. When he has time, it looks nice, quiet feet, gets it out. It's nice. And then he's got the Mahomes factor, which I don't think, a lot of people are saying like, oh, this is Mahomes 2.0. I don't think it's that, but like it's reminiscent of it for sure. Like I have no doubt that Caleb has looked at Patrick Mahomes' film and implemented that into his game, that spin away game, the throwing on the run. Like he's practicing those throws. That's why it's so dynamite.
No, for sure. And I've trolled you about Caleb Williams for weeks now. But because the Bears could potentially be moving on from Fields, I have taken a look into some tape much earlier than I ever really do. Cause there's been nothing. I was saying this last couple of weeks, like the Bears are at a spot right now where forget winning and losing. These games are so atrocious that there's nothing to even break down. I'm not watching their film all that. It's not like, oh, like if this one play happened, if the guard didn't pull correctly or they were on, like, it's just like, how do you even evaluate this? It's bad. And I'm to the point where I do think Justin can, just like you said, it has to be lights out or I don't even want to say it has to be consistent. That's been his problem. It's just been consistency. His ceiling is so high. And sometimes it's just like a couple of throws a game where you're like, that's why he was a first round pick right fucking there. And then there's like, there's these floor moments that need to be raised. Like you can't, and it's, maybe not the best example. The first one that came to mind, it's like, play before the half. You can't throw a pick to Aiden Hutchinson who's back in coverage. Like, come on, like you got to raise the floor. Throw the ball away. You know what I mean? Like let's raise that floor a bit. So to me, it's more about like raising the floor because we've seen his ceiling. We need that consistency to be there a little bit. Because he has the wow factor. He has such physical talent that you almost can't let that blind you at this point where it's like, we know what you are. We know physically what you are. If you just stripped away everything around him and just watched him throw the football, you would think he's the best quarterback in the league or one of them because he just has the physical gifts. But the more I brought up the scouting and the watching the college film because I'm not going to lie to you, Naz, if it's not Caleb Williams, or I haven't looked into Shedeur. I like what I hear about him. I trust you as well with it. But from everything his dad's saying that he's not going out until next year. I watched some Drake May tape. I watched some Penix tape. I'm going to watch, or Penix. I'm going to watch some JJ McCarthy. And there's one more that people keep bringing up. And I'm blanking on who it is.
Are people bringing Bo Nix up to you?
I've seen Bo Nix. Not to me. I've seen it on Twitter. And the only pushback that I have when it comes to Caleb, and maybe it's a semantics thing. Everyone keeps bringing up this generational. Maybe I have to let that go. What does that even? It's like I don't know what that means exactly. Like the more we've seen these young quarterbacks, it's a lottery at the end of the day. Like they have to be able to adjust to the speed of the game. He has the physical tools though. Let's not get it twisted. Caleb has the arm. He has the legs. He has all of that. He has that. But if it's not him, if we don't have the number one, I don't know if I want May, and this has nothing to do, I think everyone can probably tell this, but I'm higher on Justin, even still at this point than you are, and that's okay. Like we're not debating anything here. It has nothing even to do with that. I don't know if they're going to be successful pros. They have weird playing styles, and even like the biggest, it's not even necessarily the throwing motion. You touched on my biggest gripe with May thus far. He throws kind of like Tim Tebow threw. It's this weird like cockback sidearm thing, and it's very long.
Weird. It's long and it's a little weird. Like it just feels like it's gonna cut. Like for someone who's that big, like Justin Herbert has the same thing, but Justin Herbert's 6'6".
I know.
So it's like he's still throwing from like a general high point, even though it's kind of a sidearm.
Right.
I mean, this guy's 6'4". Like it's. I mean, I looked at a few throws. Like there's a few throws literally coming out of his shoulder.
I
Like
know.
that's a low ball, man. And he doesn't see the middle of the field that well either. Like I've noticed, like he is hesitant to pull on those crossers, and I'm like, I'm wondering if he even knows this about himself. Like because of that low trajectory, like when you throw it over the middle of the line, it could lead to some stuff. I mean, and I don't want it to be the end all be all because he's made some amazing throws. He's hitting guys in stride. It's cool. It's definitely better than the Mitchell Trubisky
Oh yeah.
North Carolina tape. So that's cool. Um, but I mean, from a risk assessment alone, I'll take at this point, just given where the contracts are, I think I'm taking Drake. I'm taking Drake 100 times out of 100, just based off of where it aligns the team from a contract situation and not getting stuck in a bad deal.
So that leads me to my only question that I had for you as it pertains to that, because that was my question. Is it just resetting the rookie contract? But there has to be a balance with it. Let's say the Bears have the 5th pick and the 7th pick. Are we settling for like JJ McCarthy? Is the reset that important?
No. No, I think I think it's Maserati Marv. Okay, best player available if Caleb's not around, and if Drake is still there, we take Drake.
Yeah, that's sort of where I'm at.
I mean, I've always been a proponent of best player available. I might even say, I mean, if the Bears took Drake at 2, I wouldn't care. I would be like, okay, I'm in. Let's go. Let's keep it moving. Like, and start drafting D linemen, O linemen.
Yep.
Let's get the trenches sorted out, and let's get moving. Because we have the weapons. We have weapons on the outside. For Drake to be successful, like we have at least one elite level talent on the offensive end. And then the rest they're not the worst skill guys. Like, Mooney has had flashes throughout his career. Kmet has had flashes. I like Roshan. Foreman, like we have a good running back room. Like we can turn this into a good offense. Again, like coaching is going to be dependent on all this too. Like I don't want Drake if Getsy and Flus are still around.
I know. I'm legitimately. I have a feeling that Flus is going to be back, so I'm mentally preparing for it. But I promise, if they bring back Luke Getsy, I won't be a fan. Like we'll probably be ending this podcast. Like I can't talk about the Bears on a weekly basis. That would be gross negligence, whether it's sticking with Fields or moving on, because it's clear he's inept at his job.
Yeah, and like I hate being this hard on a coach that's this young. Like he might just not be ready.
That's fair.
Maybe he needs to take a gig somewhere else and go back to the quarterback room, and maybe and see if he can gain a little bit more experience, and then kind of maybe reevaluate where it went wrong for him here. Because he's not coaching to his players' strengths. He's just not doing it. Definitely not Justin's. Bagent, it's clear he's got to like get the ball out. Like pretty straightforward, but to not be able to evaluate Justin properly and do what he does best, that's something he needs to work on. And if he is back, I'm gonna have a tough time watching Bears football.
I know it's this just becomes like a hate podcast, like legitimately put together low light coaching. I don't know. We'll have to figure out something. The last thing, May at 2. The only reason. Well, one, again, I think I would lean more towards Justin over May. Contract aside, obviously the reset would be great, but just skill set wise. But the other thing, and I know this is such a fan thing, and it's so stupid, and I know people are going to laugh and blah. Taking a North Carolina quarterback at number 2 again. The memes, the fucking talking heads, I don't know if I can go through a full offseason of that. And then I have to sit here and say, no, actually, May's different. He started for 3 years, and Mitch was like, I just, oh, God, I can't. I don't know if I could do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not great. It's not a great situation to be in. But I'm not gonna hold. It is what it is. Like, I'm not gonna You got to be able to evaluate with an unclouded, unbiased head and get that best player. I mean, a North Carolina QB twice in the first round at number 2. Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I think I blocked all of like the bad memories of Mitch out of my brain that like it actually didn't even really cross my mind that like it would be number 2 again, North Carolina quarterback. Because I just like I have forgotten Mitch. I don't know if like that's how my brain adjusts to trauma from a sports, and I just like forgot Mitch existed. But that's how I kind of feel. That like I've like already let it go. I'm ready to move on. Like let's go reset. Here we go.
So this is a type A, type B, or 1-2 thing because I'm the exact opposite. I respond to trauma by remembering every little thing, and I don't know if that's like an evolutionary thing of like, ancestors of mine like needed to do that to like survive, and it's like, all right, we have to remember. But that's how I am. When something like it makes me really upset, I don't fucking forget it. And like I don't know, even if it's not that crazy of a thing, it's just how it made me feel. And Mitch made me feel. So I will never forget. But I've had a traumatic. I legitimately like. I'm surprised. Well, I went to therapy for a little while. Can't afford it anymore. I got 2 kids. But I'm surprised my therapist didn't laugh at me because I told her I was like, I think I have a lot of trauma stemming from Chicago sports. Like when I was younger, it was part of my personality. So when they lost, it cut me fucking deep. Like you couldn't tell me Jim Miller wasn't going to be the next great one. You know what I mean? You couldn't tell me Rex Grossman. Like I was a kid, so I bought into everything. I didn't know how to evaluate. Right. I was just a young, dumb sports fan, but I like internalized it so much and I just remember it all.
Yeah. I mean, there is something to be said about Chicago sports sadness and just literally always expecting the bottom to fall out. And
I know
it is Chicago's. I have been so Chicago sports depressed over the last 2 months.
So bad, dude.
It's been rough. It's been pretty rough. But you know what? We're trying to move on a little bit. We got Bedard. What was your reaction to the Craig Counsell news?
Oh, I loved it. That's great.
I thought that was like, okay, this means there's action. There's more action to come. We're making this move. There's more action to come.
You think Ohtani?
Here we go.
You think Ohtani's? You think he's going to do it?
I think there's zero shot he comes to Chicago. Zero.
He wants to go to the East Coast, right? Is what he said.
I think it's one of the coasts for sure. I can't see that guy playing on a Midwest
No one's
team,
shown him
way.
The coast of Lake Michigan.
Right. I mean, it would be classic Chicago to sign a guy who's a 2-way player who can only play one way the first year, and then probably like we'll shut it down again.
I know.
Yeah, no thank. I mean, I love Ohtani. What he has done for baseball, in my opinion, has been amazing. And would I say no? No, I would not say no.
Right, of course.
Do I think we're probably better off from a mental and emotional standpoint for not signing him? Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I will say though, not to make this a baseball podcast. I know the longevity, the stats aren't there. I don't care. He is the greatest player I've seen with my own 2 eyes.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt.
I could not be in more of an agreement with you. This is
insane.
Without a doubt the best baseball player. I would get a tequila on me. I might even say the best athlete I've ever seen in my life.
Listen, it's a debate.
I mean, it's insane.
I know.
It's truly crazy what this guy's been able to do.
What would be the football equivalent? It would be an elite quarterback and an elite pass rusher. I mean, like what? Like,
yeah, I mean, yeah.
Like if they put Cam Newton at defensive end on the Panthers and he just got 12 sacks a year. I
mean, I would say it's more like having like an elite DB.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You're like Sauce Gardner and
I guess it would be like if it was Jerry Rice on one end and then Deion Sanders on the other end, and they were playing both ways.
Yeah,
like, that's like truly, truly amazing. Oh my God.
No, it's absurd. All right, Nas, let's end the pod really quick. Let's talk about Bears, Panthers. I feel like usually at this point, I'm seeing more like calculator stuff. Maybe we're a little bit early, but it's like if the Bears win, they have this percentage, and like should they be rooting for the win or the loss, like sort of the draft watch thing. And I haven't seen any of that. Have you seen any, like, should we be rooting for the Bears to win this thing?
It really hasn't come across anything that I've been looking at.
Same.
What do you actually think we should do?
I go back and forth because I think this is one of the only winnable games left for Carolina. They're that bad that I think we just take that away from them. But the Bears are probably going to win 2 more after this. That's sort of the problem. And then we're going to depend on Carolina to lose out. Kyler Murray's back for Arizona. That's phenomenal. Caleb Williams 1.0, some people call him. And hopefully he gets them a couple of wins. I think we should be rooting for the Bears to win this one.
Yeah, I agree. That top pick is what's most valuable.
Yes.
That having the top pick and like the 8th pick is more valuable than having the 4th and the 6th, in my opinion. So I think, yeah, let's try to beat them tomorrow. Try to beat them on Thursday, and hope they lose out, and hopefully we get that top pick. Because at the end of the day, people will always pay a king's ransom for something. So let's just say Fields really does ball out, and we're not going to take Caleb, but we have that first pick, and then we do exactly what we just did with DJ, and we trade back again. So, I mean, I think that's the most optimal scenario, because by having that number 1 pick, we could always get the same value of players that we would have if we got stuck with the 4 or 6. This just allows for more flexibility, in my opinion.
I totally agree. I also have this feeling, and I know you like Caleb. I think he has all the tools. If they have like the 3rd and the 5th, I think they're going to trade. If they're dead set on letting Justin go, I think they're going to trade both to get up to number 1 to get him. And I don't know if I love that.
Oh my God.
That's all. Naz, I'm a fucking scarred guy here. I'm thinking of all the negative scenarios that can happen.
I also just feel bad for like the pressure that we have put these young players who come to Chicago under. It's just like, it's just absurd. It's like who's going to answer the call? Because like it's just going to get worse and worse.
I know. I mean, because you have to be the savior. I mean, like think about what's happening in Houston. If CJ Stroud was having a much more down year, they'd be like, okay, it's a rookie. We're getting new coach, not much talent. Yeah. But the fact that he's balling out, they're just like, I know Texans fans. They're just appreciative. They're like, this is fucking great. I don't care if we make the playoffs. They're fun to watch. He's balling. Well,
it's an easy perspective to have when you're only around for 25 years, and this is the 3rd Pro Bowl quarterback you've gotten, and we've gotten 0.
Wait, 3rd?
Okay.
Oh, Matt Schaub, right?
Schaub, Watson.
Yeah, you're right.
And so it's just like a legit dude you could go to the playoffs with. I said Pro Bowler, but it's like you could actually get to a Pro Bowl relatively easily, or be a Pro Bowl alternate if you're Mitch Trubisky. So
listen, could he? There could be the argument. Could he be an All-Pro in the NFC? He keeps this up. I mean, who is like balling in as a quarterback in the NFC? Who are the leaders right now? Jalen isn't playing great. He's playing good, but CJ.
CJ's in is it AFC South?
Oh,
yeah.
You're right. Why the fuck am I thinking? My brain went to Dallas. Because Texas. It's Texas. You're right.
Right.
No, he's not getting it. He's not getting it. In
the AFC is a freaking murderer's row team. So
yeah.
But yeah, that's.
But if he was in the NFC, it'd be pretty cool, though.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, I mean, legit. Yeah. I had something I wanted to check in with you about, maybe Bulls related. Have you been checking in on the Bulls at all?
I've watched like 2 full halves. I don't find them enjoyable. They're just not. It's not even because I hated that they've re-signed people and didn't rebuild. It's just a boring team, dude. I've watched I'm watching the Celtics when they come on TNT. I've watched Victor Wembanyama in San Antonio. It's less about do I think these teams can win championships and more about like their brand of basketball has been very fun. The Bulls are stuck in the mid-2000s, dude. This may as well. I mean, they haven't evolved their philosophy.
I'm out on them.
I know. It's bad.
Even when like Levine's hot, it's still such shitty basketball.
Even
when he's like just throwing it up and it's going in, because like it does look really good, but it's like this is so dumb. No one else touched the ball.
He had 52 points and 0 assists.
What are we doing here? Like I just don't. Yeah, and I mean they had a players only meeting a game into the year.
But this is I think this is a good roundabout moment to end the podcast, because it's such Chicago sports. We look at when Eberflus is asked a question, the roundabout way he has to answer. Granted, Ryan Poles is very direct. I love that about him. Whether you like him, think he's good at his job, I love that he's direct. But Eberflus does it. Lou Getsy does it. He directs blame to everyone else but himself. And then they ask Zach, oh, like what happened at the players only meeting? And not only does he not answer the question, he refutes that it's a players only meeting by saying, oh, it wasn't a players only meeting. The coaches just weren't there. What do you think a players only meeting is? Only players, Zach. What are we doing here, man? It's like the epitome that we just can't get people. I mean, it's something that me and Jack have talked about for months at this point, where it's like, I don't know what you're doing behind closed doors in terms of accountability, right? Like we'll never know that unless they're on HBO's Hard Knocks, and you only get like the camera version of it. But the fact, like we've seen great coaches. Tomlin still does it. Bill Belichick does it. You go to basketball, Greg Pop. I hate to say throwing under the bus, but even thinking like what fucking Phil did back in the day with Michael and Kobe. It's like you're almost like poking your bears a little bit, even if it wasn't their fault, really. But like we don't even get that. It's just like lack of accountability, full stop. There is nothing. There's no remnants of accountability here.
Without a doubt. I mean, in the Bulls, it's been a thing. It's been a thing since Derek was here.
Yep.
When we got Derek, we were so thankful because we won the lottery and he got here, and it's like Chicago's son is back home. And it really felt like we did not want to do anything to upset him. And it was just like, it has been a theme for a while in Chicago sports of like catering to these players and not holding anybody accountable. The Bulls are as guilty of it as any team in the city, without a doubt. And I mean, a lot of it comes down to the owners.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like
that's what I was
it comes
gonna say.
from the top down. You got to set a tone.
Yep.
And it's okay. You're paying these guys a lot of money. Like you can look at it one way, like, oh, that guy's getting paid a lot of money. I'm a coach. I'm getting paid like a fraction of that. Like I'm going to try to tread water here and keep my job. Or you could be like, that guy's making a lot of money. If he's not doing his job, I'm going to let him know that like he's worth more to the team if he's doing this. And
yeah,
we'll see.
I mean, it's all
Maybe
about
one day that'll happen.
I know. I mean, it comes down to your leadership skills. Like, if you're even in the mindset of thinking this guy makes 10 times what I make, you lost already.
Yep.
You lost already because Greg Popovich has been in that situation for his whole career. Every other great coach has been in that same exact situation, and they don't have these issues. Not every coach can be great, granted, but I'm just saying the accountability portion is a big way you evaluate. Yeah. Okay. We're rooting for the Bears. They're gonna win 9-3. On Thursday. It's going to be a glorious Thursday night where we hear Troy Aikman get drunk and just spew off random things. It's going to be phenomenal. Hopefully Justin plays. Again, it's not because I'm high on him or want him to fulfill potential that I think he can. I'm a little over Bagent. I know there's been.
I mean, I've seen what I need to see.
Same.
It's like, all right, at least with when you have Justin in there, like there is always that possibility of seeing something spectacular.
Yep.
Like that amazing game-breaking play. And it's like, yeah, I would much rather watch that than Tyson Bagent 2-3-step drops. I don't want to see that shit anymore.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I will say too with Bagent, someone made the funniest fucking tweet I've ever seen. They were like, when he scrambles on his own and runs, he looks like Mike Vick, but on RPOs, he looks like Peyton Manning. And I was like, that's I don't get the disconnect there, but it's great. Nas, thank you for joining, man. Unfortunately, again, Jack could not be here. He will listen and critique us. Oh, we didn't talk about the orange jerseys. The episode's gone too long. Sorry, Jack. You hate them. I don't dislike them. It sounds like Nas hates them as well.
Yeah, they suck.
Yeah. Okay. So really quick then. When we were younger, that was a different orange, right? Was that not a different shade of orange? It was like a more of a burnt orange, and I loved it.
Yeah.
This is a bright red, weird orange, and I do agree. It is ugly.
I wasn't in.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, let me share my theory then really quick on Jack, because my wife brought it up and it was fucking hysterical because she doesn't have her own Twitter. So she's logged into my account. So she just goes and she's like, she saw Jack tweet up like hating that they're going to wear the orange again. And she's like, why the fuck does he hate it so much? He never stops about it. Why? And I was like, I don't know. Why do you think? He's like, and she was like, doesn't he have orange hair? He has like red hair. Why isn't he supportive? And I was like, this could be like a self-hate thing. And I wanted to bring this theory to Jack of like, maybe that's why you hate him so much, because you're projecting the hate that you have for yourself. So Jack, if you've made it this far into the episode, you chew on that and we'll talk about it next week.
Thanks for having me, Frank.
Absolutely. Later, everybody.